Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for Monday, the 17th of September. All right, now we kick the week off with the US dollar on a little bit of solid footing, and it comes from some strong data on Friday. Excuse me. The retail sales probably slightly weaker than expected, but the revisions put it into a positive mood. And then you had the industrial production numbers and the University of Michigan numbers also much stronger. So what we saw is the US dollar rally. Now, this pushed the euro and also somewhat the sterling as well back into the range, and it's really sort of screwed up the general sentiment where we had a bit of bearish sentiment on the dollar and Aussie Kiwi bearish and bullish euro and bullish sort of pound. They've sort of come back into the range. Dollar yen still creeping to the top side. It wants to go high, but as you'll see when I show you the news, the trade tariff situation is probably going to slow that down. And dollar CAD back into the groove, waiting for some sort of insight on NAFTA. There's also the uncertainty around oil with OPEC, and then also you've got the hurricanes and typhoons in China, Florida in the US, etc., etc. So there's a fair bit of stuff going on. But let's just have a look where that direction came from Friday's numbers. Now, if you just come back, rewind the clock back into the data. So you're having a look here. Now, the big focus was the US retail sales numbers. Now, they were off the beat. Okay. Ex-autos 0.3, expecting 0.5 and 0.4. We saw a little 10-point spike, but then the revisions came in. Now, as you can see, these basically offset the weakness that was generated from the actual numbers themselves. So this is a good reason why when the data comes out, you get the actual number, and then about 10 or 20 seconds later, you get the revisions. And it's very important you factor that into your trading opportunity, because if you sit there and go short dollars, it's not going to be that pretty when you see the revisions. Industrial production numbers, as I said, slightly stronger. And then you got the University of Michigan sentiment numbers, the prelim numbers, much better than expected as well. So these all sort of work towards pretty much a stronger dollar going into Friday's trading. All right, so that's where we come back to with the major currency pairs. So as you see, they're sort of back in the range. Dollar yen, they're really only sort of charging US dollar pair, but the rest of them are back in the range. Now, if I come back over here, just have a look at the setup on what's happening in where the major tension is, and it's around these trade tariffs. As you know, you've been probably reading about them for months. Now, the US dollar, okay, we're in sort of a bit of I'd say like a downtrend, but you can see most of it's sideways. We have a little blip down, and it's now coming back up towards resistance around 95, sort of 20. I would expect it to continue higher if the news out there about Trump issuing another $200 billion in tariffs on China, that should see the dollar rally. Outside of that, it's still just going to be trading sideways with a slightly bearish outlook. The dollar yuan, okay, the offshore dollar yuan, now just coming up towards resistance here around 6.88. Okay, we've got a few other highs just above that level, but if the tariffs do come into play, then you've got to expect the US dollar to explode to the top side here, and we do have a level, but at the moment it's just been jamming away sideways. And when this thing runs, it really gets a strong run on. But what we need is the news first. Looking at the equity markets, not much in the equities at this stage. Pretty flat in the US, and once again, a typhoon that's ripped through Hong Kong, the Philippines, and now heading towards China may create some issues, but at the moment it's not doing too much, as well as that hurricane into Florida as well. All right, now let's just have a look at the what's been going on out there as far as news goes. I mean, it's the same old stuff. So you're just going to, it's hard not to lose your mind here, but we're just going to be patient and wait for these things to play out. Now, the dollar rise on solid US data. Well, as I said, the revisions in the retail sales offset the weakness in the core number. Then you had strong industrial production and University of Michigan numbers. So yeah, we had some strong numbers, but it's enough to get it back in the range, take off that downward momentum, but it's not enough to change the overall sentiment at this stage. But this is what could change it. It's the tariff situation again. Now, you got to try and work out what Trump's doing. Like he's talking about, he's invited the China to talk about the whole trade situation. I don't know if he hasn't got a response. And he said instead of getting a response, this goes to put another 200 billion in tariffs on. So this is going to inflame things anyway, and I think that's what he's after. But so that's all we can do is, and the market is actually really, this came out last week and we saw the move. So the market's, I think, a fair bit, like 60, 70% factored in more tariffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how these currencies play out around that. Now, coming into the rest of the majors, sterling, well, we're coming into a couple of big Brexit weekends where they've got some EU summits on Brexit. It's been sort of creating a lot of havoc. The general fundamentals for sterling are out the window, I think, at this point. Dollar CAD also, NAFTA, massive situation there. The data is coming in and chiming in here and there, but it's only short-term impacts. You're waiting, these geopolitical events are dominating the scene somewhat. So when you come back to trying to piece together where the action is, right, well, as I said, you can have a look over here back at the majors. You've got your major currency pairs. If I just get back onto my better charts, we do have some clear sentiment. And if anything, these currencies are trading sideways. We are gearing up for potential trading opportunities. I don't think there's going to be anything today. Don't forget the Asian session should be pretty quiet. We've got a Japanese holiday today as well. Now, if we do just come back to, actually, let's get up the MyFX Trading Hub and drag that across. Now, what you want to do is actually start to plan out your week, okay? So looking at the major economic data that I can see out there, it doesn't really start until Tuesday. And we've got the minutes of the RBA. We might see some insight. These guys, there's lots of reports coming out within Australia at the moment about the housing market and how it's about to collapse, basically. So we want to start to see if this is starting to be mentioned by the central bank. They don't want to create fear, but there's already a lot out there, and it could be the Aussie market could be in for a tough time, especially if the US increases tariffs on China and we start to see an impact there. But coming into the first part of the day, trading conditions, not too bad, but one thing you have to understand is the geopolitical situation is still overshadowing the fundamentals, the core fundamentals at this point. And then you come into Tuesday, we've got Draghi speaking in Paris. Now, it's not a central bank event. He's invited as the ECB president. I don't expect anything out of that with regards rates or anything, but it is a high-impacting event because he is in charge of basically monetary policy. So anyway, it's up there, but we'll see how that plays out. Then you come into the really good trading opportunities or bigger ones. Wednesday, UK CPI, Kiwi GDP, following that. And then, we've got the Swiss LIBOR rate that comes out every 3 months. I don't expect anything out of the Swiss, but we'll see what goes on there. And then as you come back down through the bottom of the week, it's actually pretty good because we don't have a whole heap of central bank stuff that interrupt things. UK retail sales, German flash manufacturing. You've also got the Eurozone manufacturing PMI there as well, and CAD CPI. Now, what are we going to do about this? Well, once again, you join the dots. And it's the geopolitical situation which you have to keep in the back of your mind. So as these releases come out, what's driving it? Is it the core fundamentals? No, it's not. So these opportunities still, I think on a lot of the majors, are pretty much short term. And you can see that on the daily analysis. Now I'm only showing you here the snapshot. For those members that do have access, click into the charts there. You'll see in-depth analysis here on the majors. Now, Euro and Sterling back into a sideways sort of sentiment at this stage. That's from the US data on Friday, pushed them back into the range. We're seeing a lot of the daily charts on a lot of these majors are right at critical levels. So they are just jamming away sideways. So the short term, you're seeing some short term movement on the hourlies, but the weekly and daily charts are getting a little bit shunted around. Aussie and Kiwi still maintain their bearish sentiment at this stage. So to me, these two pairs are potentially, looking to get into those opportunities on the downside. The rest of them, you can almost be looking for range trading opportunities. Okay, that's where you come back up and start to match up the fundamental drivers. Okay, what have we got out here? Then you're looking for, okay, we've got the Aussie. Well, it's in a bearish sort of sentiment to me. I'm looking for opportunities to sell. I watch that data to see what's going on, and that's how you sort of follow the fundamental releases with trying to isolate the best trading pairs. Now, as I said, some of these pairs, the data is really pushing them around a bit on the daily sort of side of things. Sterling still up on the dailies, but the rest of the charts, if you go down here, like the hourly charts, yeah, sure, Euro's come off, but on the daily and weekly charts, it's still trading sideways. And the good thing about this analysis is the summary, you're going to take a lot of noise out of the market. So instead of like looking at, let me just come back over here to Euro, and you think, oh, well, Euro's come off here, it's going down. No, it's not. Okay, this isn't going down anywhere. Okay, that's it's just a short-term blip on that recent economic data out of the US, and that's all we've got there. So when you come back and looking at the overall trends, don't forget to consider looking at your longer-term charts. Now, Aussie, to me, still bearish, and Kiwi, you can see here, see the sideways action just through that resistance line there on Euro. Same for Sterling. Dollar CAD the same. And it's pretty much the same on dollar yen, although it's got a little bit more of an upward trajectory. So that's where we are, guys. It's not much to do just at the moment. Japanese holiday today for Asia, and but we do have a few opportunities this week. Now, don't go into the week with any major preconceptions of what's going to happen. Just let the events roll. Okay, let the data that's coming out. Okay, there's a lot more data than I've mentioned on our MyFX Trading Hub, but just roll with what's going on. And unfortunately, this is where the if you come back over here to the actual data itself, or the news, you know, usually in normal market conditions. I mean, this is quite customary now with Trump. But these things up here should be about the dollar, you know, moving higher on US numbers, sterling doing something on its data, CAD, you know, the central bank. There's less central bank activity here and less mention about economic numbers than I've seen in a long, long time. And it's all around this week, to start the week, all around China. So keep an eye on those tariffs. As I said, the market factored this in last week. So I'm starting to think even if the tariffs do come out, the market will be somewhat desensitized and we may not see as big an impact unless the US does put some tariffs on and then China comes back with something really crazy, which would be great to see. All right, so from there, guys, it's there's not much to do except just keep an eye on the big picture, and that really means keep an eye on the dollar index here, and most importantly, during that Asia session in particular, keep an eye on the dollar yuan. All right, that's where the action is going to be. All right, guys, have a good trade week. Have a good day. I'll see you in the trade zone. Cheerio.